Have you experienced psychic abuse in your life? Many more people do have some experience of this, partly because of our digital age, in which we get text messages and phone calls from people who are, trying to rip us off, if you will. We're much more connected, aren't we? Travel, education, and communication mean that these are channels by which people's consciousness intersect. So I have a letter here from somebody who asked the question, since thoughts and feelings one to another are impactful from person to person, does this mean we are not free in ourselves? How to know whether thoughts and feelings are mine or somebody else's? Can someone force me to feel certain emotions and thoughts? Will my mind accept all the strong thoughts that are pointed at me, even if they're harmful to me? Well, those are very good questions, and particularly for this day and age. I know there are parts of the world that are much more psychically vulnerable. I think of Brazil, South America, India, probably parts of China, Africa, where things like voodoo and black magic are still in existence and still felt even today, curses and so forth. In much of the so-called Western world, with our intellectual development and our emphasis on thoughts in the mind and individuality and personality, that a lot of those practices and our vulnerability to them has largely faded into the background. But in replacing that has been our vulnerability to images, words, sounds, music, and so forth through the medium, through the digital medium. You think about the power of music. Think of hard rock music. Hard rock. What does that tell you about the music? And think of all, stalking, all manner of psychic abuse. So we may not be as vulnerable to the older forms of psychic abuse. We have our own version. From what I have experienced, it is a very real threat, a very real vulnerability. And for those of us on the spiritual path, it's actually compounded. Why? Because ordinarily, we create around ourselves, human beings, a kind of a hard, if fragile, shell of egoism to protect ourselves from abuse and rejection and negativity. But when someone enters the path of meditation and spirituality and their heart opens and they try to be more loving and cooperative and willing and compassionate, all these things, what that does is that shell of ego, fragile though in fact it is, nonetheless, we're dismembering that. We're taking that down. And so for people on the spiritual path, I have found, in addition to everything else I've mentioned that are influences in today's society, they are even more vulnerable. People saying, I'm a sensitive person. You hear this all the time. At least I do, because of the life I lead and the people I associate with, and as a trainer and a teacher of meditation and so forth. So it is, I believe, a very real issue. Now, in this short broadcast, I can't give all the different techniques that we offer. You can write to us for more information. But the key has to do with your own magnetism. Yogananda identified and used the term the law of magnetism, the law of vibratory exchange. And he said, don't be fooled. Just because you are spiritually minded and a good, nice person doesn't mean that your magnetism in its positive manifestation is necessarily stronger than the evil or negative magnetism of somebody else. Their negativity can be stronger than your fledgling awakening of your spiritual consciousness. Swami Kriyananda said you take a unmagnetized bar of steel, put it next to a bar of steel that's magnetized, and that magnetism will transfer over to the other bar. And so, or alternatively, run a high current of electricity through a steel bar, and it'll become magnetized. And so the solution is to become magnetic. There are many ways to become magnetic, and some of them are even negative. So what I'm going to talk about is spiritual magnetism. Spiritual magnetism comes from leading a spiritual life. That includes daily prayer, meditation. It's realigning your thoughts to God Word. It's reading about and studying and imitating, if you will, practicing the lives of the saints, and it's walking your path. In other words, it's associating with people of like mind. That's how you become strong. In this world today, in the workplace and in the environments in which many people live throughout the world, there is such an admixture of levels of consciousness and lifestyles. There are so many choices that it's very easy to become demagnetized, to become confused, to experiment in ways that are not helpful to you spiritually and in every other way, health-wise and psychologically as well. To develop your spiritual magnetism there's no secret to that. Of course, it's having a spiritual life, prayer, meditation, all the things I said, a life of devotion, a life of selfless giving. As it relates to any specific instances, that's very individual, but certainly you don't want to open your mind to anyone who seems threatening to you psychically or otherwise. You're not there to convert them. Don't. If you feel vulnerable, then stand back and strengthen your efforts to pray and meditate, to lead a healthy and clean life in terms of exercise, diet, rest, and so forth. Yes, to associate by virtue of reading or listening, or better yet, in person, with people who live the life and have the magnetism that you are seeking spiritually. Yogananda, in his autobiography, famous Autobiography of a Yogi, has this one sentence that says, "Thoughts are universally, not individually rooted." So yes, we don't have a unique individual thought ever. All things, we are a manifestation of a universality. We are not an island unto ourselves. Our real choice in life is not to be uniquely creative or uniquely individual. It's to what influences do I wish to associate and draw into my life? Not in mere imitation, mind you, because we are unique even on the highest soul level, not just in our personalities. So whatever influence we open ourselves to, we will express in our own unique way. But it's a myth, a Western myth, that we are some sort of a cowboy on a horse, fighting the battle of life in our own way, self-sufficient, and so forth. That's just a myth. Yes, we want to be strong in ourselves. Yes, of course. The irony is that by opening ourselves up to pure influences, spiritual influences, we become uniquely and truly our own person. Those other influences, whether they be political or cultural and this kind of thing, artistic and commercial, etc., those are fine influences, at least so far as most of them go, but they're not on a soul level. They don't have the power to change your life, okay? So this is a very important topic. Yogananda gave a couple of mantras that we share. I'm not going to do that here, But for self-protection in specific cases where you feel like you might be under psychic attack, write to us and we'll be happy to share those with you. Be well, be strong. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. All that I seek await discovery within my soul self.